Welcome
Happy
in
New
to
Year.
MLS Monday, my Scarves and Spikes. Happy New Year. Happy Three Kings Day if you are celebrating it today.
Explain Three Kings Day for those that don't know, by the way.
All right, so Three Kings Day. So this is big in my family because Puerto Rican family. But basically, story of Jesus. He's born. I think people know the story of Jesus much more,
Yes.
even if you're not, Christian or you celebrate Christmas. But basically, the three wise men. They set off on their trek to go see this baby Jesus, and of course, it
Gotcha.
takes them some time to get there. And so that's why Three Kings Day is celebrated a couple of week and a half,
Gotcha.
2 weeks almost after Christmas Day, because they saw the signs he was born, and then they arrived to present him with their gifts. So there's Three Kings story.
So they're not to throw water on what you said. So there are three gifts. Doesn't mean there are three kings. I'm just throwing not for you, not for you.
Right.
I'm just
right. Three wise men, three kings.
But,
they presented three gifts. Yes, there's variations upon variations. Right. So, but that is why it is a couple weeks after.
Yeah.
So,
man, it's been a while since we've been together, hasn't it?
I know, it's kind of crazy. So, we're gonna dive into it. Happy New Year again, everybody. Glad everybody is able to hang out with us. Jack, your scarf is somewhere either in or over the Atlantic Ocean. AX10, thanks for hopping in. Everybody else, y'all jump in the chat like normal, but it is MLS Monday. We're gonna start this new year off with a bang. So, I guess
bang.
Other housekeeping out of the way really quick. ScarvesandSpikes.com. Get all your Atlanta United news, other Southeastern soccer news. Got some cool stories coming very, very soon. And we have plenty of stuff going on. Obviously, again, website, YouTube channel. If you're not already subscribed, please go ahead, like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and then go join the Patreon. We're recording something very soon that is going to be going up on there. Have content, especially now that the New Year's here, coming out. And patreon.com/scarves and spikes, and you'll go get in our Discord and come chat with us and talk with us. So
also scarvesandspikes.com has a link to our store, so get a hoodie, hat, mug. It is definitely cold here in Atlanta, as you know, Tyler. Beer glass, what have you. So that definitely helps us support the show. So scarvesandspikes.com has links to all of that. Absolutely. Where do we want to start?
I guess we'll start really quick. I mean, not because I don't want to dive into any of the Atlanta stuff, because Wednesday is going to be obviously our main Atlanta show. That's not changing. Clean clips. I see you asking about Kyogo Furuhashi. Nothing new, but we'll definitely talk a lot more about it on Wednesday.
I have a feeling we won't have much to talk about on Wednesday unless something happens tomorrow.
Yeah, I think Wednesday will be a day more of rumors. I don't imagine anything news-wise between now and then, or even maybe this. I don't know. We'll see, because it's MLS, it's soccer, it's professional sports, so you never really freaking know.
Yeah.
But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, something could happen.
Yeah.
None of us know, but something could happen. We'll see.
Other teams are definitely making moves. We do have to talk about the opposition if you're an Atlanta United fan. I guess we'll start off with we're going to get to Miggy, because I know everybody wants to hear about Miguel Almiron, possibly. But let's start with Jesus Ferreira to Seattle, and we can jump over to Brandon Vazquez. But what have you kind of heard with this whole Jesus Ferreira move, and what do you think about it?
Well, it's reported, it's not finalized by Seattle. The Brandon Vazquez news to Austin came out a few hours ago, so that's official. But Ferreira to Seattle is still a reporting stage. I think Tom Bogert and others have picked up on it. The big question you have to ask, and I'll just kind of dovetail it with the other news of Vazquez, is the big question is, these are two players, right, who are on the national scene, the U.S. men's national team radar. That being said, Vazquez did not get called in to Camp Cupcake. Ferreira did get called in. So sort of the big question is, and I'm going to kind of lean toward Vazquez more, since he was out of MLS for a while, and lean it more toward toward both of them. But I think the big question is, who will have the biggest impact with their club? This is kind of a different move for Seattle, I think. they don't really make big splashy moves, and by all accounts, this is a big splashy move. So I think the big question is with Jesus is how does this relate to him getting back into the national team radar? Granted, he's already in it, and he's going to be in camp in the next few days here. But how does that affect him? What does that mean for him? What does that mean for Seattle? Right? This is a big chess piece, a big piece of the puzzle for them as they look to try to get back into the Western Conference discussion. Not that they were out of it, but this was a team that won games right on defense. They're looking to, I guess, with this move, make some moves offensively, really establish itself as an attack-minded team. That defense will still be there, of course, but they didn't really do well in playoffs, as we saw on the attack, and eventually they were able to suffocate everybody to death like they did with everybody else. So I think Jesus definitely helps with that. And then Vazquez, what's that mean? I think that's a great move for Austin. Austin has struggled, of course, last year. They're coming with a new coach, Nicolas Davis. We'll talk about the new coaches a little bit later on. So a lot of questions to be asked about them. A lot of questions to be asked about Vazquez. Things didn't really work out, right? In Liga MX for him. So maybe it's a move that kind of restarts things for him and gets him back on the national team radar. It gets him back into good form because he's just fallen off the radar. We haven't heard much about him. We saw him briefly involved in a couple of men's national team matches a few years ago. Hasn't been on the radar, and part of it has been, his form. He's not been in the best form. So I guess that's the big question. Maybe you have an answer to who will have the bigger impact with his club in 2025 and beyond. Is it Jesus? Is it Brandon? I guess that's the big question we have to answer, right, about those two.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I have never been thoroughly impressed by Jesus Ferreira. And it's not a knock. Like, it's not one of those things where I think he's a bad player. But, I mean, look at FC Dallas this past year, 5 goals, 3 assists, basically playing as an attacking midfielder. Yeah, I mean, he started 14 matches, played 22 matches, played just over 1,300 minutes. I mean, now, to be fair, Dallas is like a box of chocolates. If we're using that old, Forrest Gump saying, like, you never know what you're going to get. FC Dallas is so up and down. Seattle is much more of a steady ship. So if, Seattle, I guess, always does feel like that team that is only one little tweak away from knocking it out of the park because they always make it. Like, they always make it far enough. Like, they may not start a season off well, but they always make it to the playoffs. And so, yeah, maybe Ferreira is that change of scenery. It's being under a more veteran coach, a more, like I said, stable ship. But it's one of those where I got to see it to believe it. I really do. Like, I think he's okay, but I just haven't been thoroughly impressed.
And 2 other things to keep in mind too. Dallas have a new coach as well, in Eric Quill. So maybe that's a discussion where he said, or the front office has said, this is a player that we want to build around. I think the bigger point too is Jesus' contract ended after 2024, I believe. So they always were going to need to make a move. And I feel like the longer it went without him signing an extension to his contract, the longer it seemed that he wasn't going to be back in 2025. And again, it was a significant, it was always going to be a offseason of moves for FC Dallas. So I think we were talking a couple of years ago, Tyler, that this kid could win. He's still a kid. He's 24 years old, still a youngish player. We're talking about 2022, potential golden boot season, 18 goals, right? So that just tells you just the kind of form that he's not been in over the past few years. This was a player that we were talking about, not just golden boot, potential move to Europe. And things have not clicked for whatever reason. Maybe under Brian Smetzer, maybe in the more stable environment with Jordan Morris up top and other pieces around there, like the Roldan brothers, etc. He can gel and he can become the player that he was back in 2022 and to a lesser extent 2023. But he's got to find his form. He's got to find his legs underneath him. And going to your point, I think Seattle is a good place for that stability, a longer term situation. He's familiar with the Roldans. He's familiar with Jordan Morris from the men's national team. So I think it's a good move, and I think that is a fresh start for him, not just for his professional career, but for his international career. So we'll see how that pans out. We'll see how that goes, but it's a massive move for Seattle. Still being reported, not official yet as we're coming out of the year right now, but still a massive move for Seattle, I think. I think you muted.
I'm muted. Sorry.
Yeah.
Breaking in the new year.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think as far as Vazquez is concerned, he needed to get out of Liga MX for sure. Like clearly that was not working out. And I mean, I'm not mad at him for taking that leap. Like he had that really, really good run with right? Kind of dropped off a little bit, but he's able to make the move. And you think, all right, well, this is a chance to get out of, the MLS bubble, as some people kind of refer to it as.
So dream come true for him, right? He played for essentially his hometown club at Shadows.
Yeah,
like right across the border.
Great opportunity. I don't want to call it
Monterrey.
Yeah, Monterrey.
Yeah.
It's I don't want to call it an experiment, but I mean he kind of came in and it was like, all right, well he's still banging in a couple of goals, and then it just died. And whether you as a fan, if you're a fan of Brandon Vazquez, like I mean, he's always going to hold a place in Atlanta fans' hearts because he is the Open Cup hero, Brandon Vazquez. That being said, he kind of just he had that time where he fell off, and whether it's because of his issues with his club, which is kind of what it sounds like, that's why he wanted to move. Whatever kind of politicking was going on down at the club, I don't know. He clearly wasn't happy. When you're not happy, you typically don't put your heart into what your job is. And this is kind of what it felt like. So he's moving to Austin, which, is still close for him to, I think, kind of the location that he wants to be in, right? I mean, it's in Texas. Like he's still kind of, if you look at the Julian Gressel example, Julian Gressel's like, I don't want to be on the West Coast. I want to be on the East Coast. I was closer to family. This is, there's things about that for your morale as a soccer player that, that can benefit you. And at the end of the day,
well, I'll say this real quick. Initial reports were he was going to go to SDFC, which is his hometown. So I wonder if that was just his agent putting things out there, or where there was actual things to it before Austin swooped in. But
also he would have had a lot more competition going to San Diego.
Yeah.
Because I don't know exactly how they're going to use Tricky Lozano, but I don't know how that pairing would have went. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. He's going to Austin. Austin needs some freshening up in a few places. And so I think for him, I do think it's a good move. I don't think it was a good business move for Austin. I think it was a little overpriced personally. But look, I'm not the one writing the check. So there's two moves there. Huh?
So I was going to say real quick, Mark saying in the chat, not a good deal at $10 million. I would agree. I would agree with that. He's a good player. I think he'll have success back in MLS, but I feel like they overpaid him, and it kind of gives you the impression that maybe it was a little bit of a bidding war going on between San Diego and Austin.
Yeah.
So we'll never know, but maybe they did overpay a little bit, but that puts a lot of pressure on him to perform right. They paid a pretty hefty transfer fee, club record transfer fee for him. He's got to perform. He's got to live up to the price tag. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of questions being asked of the front office, the ownership, the president, Rodolfo Ferreira, just coming in, a couple of years in. This is his first big move with Austin FC. So Vazquez has to perform to that contract.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, we've seen him do it, right? He had a really, really good season. Absolutely. And it just kind of felt like that year's Cincinnati team, though, was a perfect example of a team where everybody's chemistry just fit right. You didn't have, a ton of superstars. I mean, of course, you have Acosta, you had Vazquez, and he was just doing his thing. But it wasn't like this absolute superstar team. But they made it work. And, it was one of those where the sum was much greater than all the parts. So if he can recapture something like that with the guys that are playing on Austin now and whatever moves they make in the future, I mean, sure, like it'll definitely put him back in the national team conversation for sure. But it's on him. It's on him. He's got to perform.
And real quick on Austin, Jack saying in the chat, Sebastian Driussi is getting sold to River, it sounds like. Elie has signed for Austin, very good veteran signing by Austin. So they have some pieces that are coming in for Austin. And again, the new coach with Nicolas Davis, of course, MLS experience and well in Dallas, of course. But maybe it's time for him to resurrect his career with Austin FC. Gray asking, how many Vazquez goals will Gallagher assist in 2025? Two former Atlanta United teammates back together in the Lone Star State. So we'll have to take a look to see what comes of that. Maybe that could be a little running bet we have.
I'll give him a solid 4.
I'll take the over on that. I'll take over.
All right.
That's a good shout, though.
Yeah, I like. I mean, it is cool to see them. Especially because John Gallagher. I mean, he had a handful of appearances with Atlanta. But I always liked John Gallagher. I thought he was a pretty good player.
Yeah.
All right.
Real quick too. Yeah. I'll get to this too. A little bit of Atlanta United flair. Omer saying is Yakimakis better than Brandon Vazquez? Is both for the same transfer fee? No, I do think so by a long shot. I feel like Gigi's definitely proven more than Vazquez did when he was Monterrey. So I think, he is better. Again, that transfer fee is going to be the sticking point. Again, maybe it suggests that there's a little bit of bidding war between two front offices of San Diego and Austin. So again, that's a lot of pressure on Vazquez. And again, the big question, can he live up to the transfer fee?
Yeah. And if he can come in and have that kind of pressure on his shoulders and do the job and put forth a solid campaign 2025, he'll catch the eye of Pochettino again.
Mm-hmm.
I say again, of the men's national team again, but Pochettino for the first time. I think, yes, Colonel, I meant the total was greater than the sum of the parts. Yes. Again, breaking in 2025 here.
Yeah, off to a good start.
but yeah, I think, I don't know. They're two moves, both of those. Jesus Ferreira, Brandon Vazquez. I mean, they both have golden opportunities in front of them because they're coming to teams where they can be the star. Absolutely. And they just got to make it happen.
Another real quick move I want to throw in that's getting a lot of buzz is Jalen Neal getting traded to San Diego. Jalen Neal has been a long time LA Galaxy player, came through Montreal. I'm sorry. I don't know why I said San Diego. Long-time LA Galaxy player, came through the academy. Not the biggest move of the day, obviously, but very under the radar move. And Montreal, that's a key signing for them. That's a really good center back signing for Montreal. They have a long way to go before they get to where they need to be, but you can do a lot worse than Jalen Neal. Certainly center back. Fabian Herber is coming in at midfield. So you have two pieces in there that can kind of elevate the club a little bit. Barely snuck into the playoffs like Atlanta did. Well, not barely, but they caught fire at the end thanks to Joseph. Of course, they lost to Atlanta United in the wild card round, but maybe a young player like Jalen Neal, who, again, has spent a lot of time in LA Galaxy, leaving his home club and joining Laurent Courtois up north. Maybe that's a move that could push it a little bit further. And the same thing with Herber's veteran player in the midfield. Not a superstar, but a player that has a lot of mileage on him that could help the younger players along. So a little bit under the radar signing trade that I wanted to bring up too.
Yeah, and because you're on the topic of Montreal, our old friend Joseph Martinez may be on his way down to Racing Club, I believe it was.
Yeah.
I think that was just double check here. Make sure. Yeah, Racing Club.
What? Wasn't there a report last year saying he's going to Racing? I feel like that comes out every year.
I feel like maybe it was. I feel like there was one for a club in Brazil too, though. and I can't remember what club it was, but I mean, if that happens, he's going to be hanging out with Santiago Sosa.
That's right.
So we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, there's a few South American outlets that are reporting it. Fichajes.net is one of them. But I also think Merlo said it's happening. So I feel like there's some pretty good legs to it.
So surprising. I think he stayed at MLS, but maybe he feels like, hey, I need to get out of MLS for a little bit. And maybe he comes back at some point, but
come back for a 1-day contract for Atlanta United. Retire.
Hey, I wouldn't be opposed to that at all.
Yep. All right. So also tying it back, God, this is a good segue. And this
a lot of Atlanta ties.
Piss a lot of people off. There are legs to the rumor that the ostrich, Miguel Almiron, might be going to Charlotte FC. I don't want to be on social media if and when this happens for a couple of days. I don't want to. It's going to be chaos between Atlanta and Charlotte fans. And then the day that first game happens, which is not very far into the season,
March 1st.
Yeah, that's going to be an absolute crap show.
Well, let's take our Atlanta United caps off for a second. As I'm wearing my Austin hat, which is not related to Austin FC at all. that was an accident. That was an unintentional fashion choice there. But kind of taking the Atlanta United aspect out and looking at it from a neutral standpoint. Big question I have is: will this have the big impact that Charlotte fans hope it will have? And B, what adjustments can you make to today's MLS? Because here's a player that hasn't played in MLS in 5 years. It's a much different league. Still a lot of parity in MLS, but it's a much different league than when he left. And it's a very ambitious move for David Tepper and his crew in Charlotte, looking to remain relevant in the Eastern Conference. I think things didn't work out the way that Miggy. He had some success with Newcastle.
Yeah, it wasn't like he went over there and just disappeared. I mean,
he didn't disappear, but I'm sure if he had to do all over again, things would be a little different. And I think some of it was Atlanta went to make a profit, and not to say that Newcastle was a bad decision for him. I think it was a great decision. I think it was a good move for him, but they didn't quite catch on the way he hoped. But now, like you said, there are legs to him coming back to MLS and Charlotte FC, and I think that's the big question you have to ask. What version of Miguel Almiron do you get with Charlotte FC?
And how do they use him?
How do they use him?
Because there's a lot to unpack here. So going into the comments. I mean, of course, everybody has opinions. Jack saying if Mickey goes there, it is what it is. Still love Mickey. I'll still love Mickey too. I'm just gonna hate him when Atlanta plays him. I love Atlanta more than Mickey. I'm sorry. Yeah. Gray asking a really good question. At this point, would you rather have Saba or Almiron? I mean,
that's kind of a different question because he played two different positions. But
I mean, Newcastle used him on the right, the same as Saba.
Yeah.
Now Atlanta didn't. Obviously, I mean, Atlanta he was more of a left-sided player, and he had most of his success on that side. But I mean, did Newcastle use him wrong? Did Atlanta just use him right? Did he? Yeah. Was it just a natural fall off? Like, was the competition? There's a lot there, which I guess is really the foundation of soccer in general. Like, some teams you play well for, some teams you just don't.
Right.
But I mean, let's see. So Zilf said he's going to go back to South America. I
think he froze. I don't know if that's me or him. But I think he'll be back in a second. We'll see. It's biding my time here. I really don't know if this is me or if it's him. If it is him, he'll be back. But yeah, that's obviously one of the big news. Are you back?
I'm back.
Oh, you froze.
Yeah. Yep. Go ahead. I was about to pull something up, but I don't want to interrupt you.
No, but again, like, what kind of player will it be for Charlotte? And is this just David Tepper spending money to bring someone in who he hopes will stick, or will Almiron have a legitimate impact on this team? And I think that's what you have to measure it by. I'd love to see what the transfer fee is to bring him in. I imagine it will be 8 figures, but how much in the 8-figure area will it be? If it's not 8 figures, very high, 7 figures. I think 8, 9 million. That's the standard you have to look at it, right? Is it just a hood ornament, or is it a player that will make significant progress with Charlotte FC?
So I will say, from a tactical, the way Charlotte wants to play kind of standpoint, their coach, and yeah, Omar, and I don't know, like I know that we've reported it. I think Doug's reported it. Atlanta will get a sell-on fee. Like they're going to make money on wherever he does go. So that's great for Atlanta. But they're also going to have to play against him. And if he does work in Charlotte, that's going to suck. So Charlotte has spent the past year being very defensive-minded, very defensive-oriented. They love to hit on a counter with nobody that can hit on a counter. That was their problem. Now you get a guy who was known for how fast he was on the ball in Atlanta and to a degree in Newcastle, to be the guy that breaks pressure coming out of, kind of your own defensive third. Nobody wants to run with Miggy, and that's going to be very, very difficult to contain. I mean,
but was that MLS Miggy, or is that current Miggy? I mean, he's 30 years old. I agree.
I mean, we'll have to see how that translates. And, look, Father Time does catch up with people, but we also had this maybe not same exact conversation, but we did have the Father Time conversation about one Brad Guzan, who then turned and found the fountain of youth and did all kinds of stuff against Lionel Messi.
Yeah, but that's a little different though. Like, this is Miggy's an outfield player, obviously. So,
but you never know. I mean, I think in theory, though, Miggy is a good signing for them. Now, how much you pay for it, that's a different topic entirely. I hope they pay a whole bunch of money because some of that's going to go to Atlanta.
I'd love to see what the contract length is too. I would imagine, I don't think it's anywhere. It would be anything more than 2. If it is, it has to be an option for a third.
Yeah.
Like, they're not going to invest a lot of money for him to be there, 3 years? So I think it's going to be 2 plus 1 or something like that. And then, what will the salary fee look like? He'll have to be a DP, as Mark said. He'll command a DP contract.
Yep.
So what will the logistics look like? What will those numbers look like for Miguel Almiron? I mean, this is a big signing for Charlotte. Potentially club record signing for Charlotte.
Yeah. Zilf saying, it's a good point too. Defenders in 2025 are a lot better than defenders in 2018. So
yeah, it goes back to what I was saying earlier.
Yeah, couple that with what you were saying about the speed. I mean, Father Time, you never know. Either way, though, if it does happen and Atlanta is playing against them, it's going to be fireworks for sure.
March 1st.
I hope he doesn't score in the bins. The last time he scored in the bins was the Premier League Summer Series.
Yeah.
And that was, I'm so happy that got to see that in person with my family. It was really awesome. But that's the last goal I ever want him to score in the bins, unless he comes back to Atlanta. So,
yeah.
Well, said Noah Cobb will lock him up.
Right. But yeah, that's something to monitor. Obviously, again, not official. We've heard of them over the past few weeks, right? Real quick, he doesn't have a green card, does he?
I don't think he ever got a green card in Atlanta.
Okay. Because I was going to say, if he did, I mean, they could get him here. I have to go through the visa stuff. He'll be there for preseason, so.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's going to be an interesting storyline to follow, especially from an Atlanta perspective, if it happens.
But over under, how many goals does he score? Goals, assists for Miggy in 2025 with Charlotte, if he ends up in Charlotte. Let me give you mine.
All right.
I say 6 and 5. 6 and 5. 6 goals, 5 assists.
Oh, I was going to take the over. I'll take the over on that.
What are you saying?
I was actually going to go closer to like 12 and 5.
12 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he has 12 goals in him.
I mean, he's the only goal scorer. He's going to be the main goal scorer for Charlotte. That's the problem. Like, if he's not scoring goals, there ain't many people that are going to be scoring goals.
What about him? Aubameyang.
I mean, but has he? Like, to that degree? You know? I don't know, man. I mean, now, of course, having a guy like Miggy may make him more efficient for sure. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, well, that's going to be important to see. And let's forget Swiderski. I mean, he's had injury history with Charlotte. He came on really strong at the end of the season. So he's going to be your number one striker up front. Aubameyang, of course, is going to be in the cards as well. What will that chemistry look like with one or both of those players? It's going to be very key for Charlotte if this move is going to take place. Mark's saying any deal has to go through Miggy. He's turned on multiple transfers in multiple leagues. So I think the big question is does he feel is this the right move for him at this stage in his career? It doesn't look like he's kind of going back to Newcastle when his contract is up. Does it make sense for him to go to Charlotte? There's a little bit of acrimony we hear when he left Atlanta. Maybe it left a little bit of a bad taste in his mouth the way he left. But maybe that's a way for him to, again, speaking theoretically, maybe he can think, hey, I can stick it to Atlanta by going to a derby rival of theirs. So to Mark's point, it has to make sense for him. And it has to make sense for Charlotte, both parties.
Yeah, absolutely. And to his point as well, I mean, rumors have popped up not just now, but all the time, it seems like, for Miggy. Basically going back 2 years, there was a Saudi Arabia move. Like they were offering him a lot of money.
Yeah, so, a lot.
It's going to be what Miggy wants at the end of the day.
Oil money.
Getting to the point where Miggy's going to have to make a decision, but I think the ball is proverbially still in Miggy's court. So,
yeah,
I hit on MDK's comment really quick. We'll jump to the coaching conversation. Brad Guzan will start this season, right? Yes, Brad Guzan, unless something goes, knock on wood, something goes terribly wrong. It would be insane for Dyla to just take Guzan out of the starting spot after everything he did in 2024. I think that's like the one position that you don't have to worry about. Brad Guzan.
Yeah, he started. He started.
No chance.
He's starting. We have some coaching stuff to talk about too.
We have
a lot
of coaching stuff to talk about. So 2 head coaches in the last 5 days, but you want let's take us through them. Everything.
I didn't think it was going to do. It's a long list. It's a long list. So the big ones for the past couple of days: Brandon Cardinal going to Philadelphia Union. That happened last week, and then today, Pascal Jansen was announced to NYCFC.
Is it Jansen or Janssen?
It might be Jansen. But he's coming over from the Hungarian first division league. I forget what the club is, Ferenc, in Hungarian first division. So he's coming over. A little bit of an interesting move, an outsider for NYCFC. I think it's Ferencváros. I could be wrong. I don't know Hungarian. But Bradley Cardinal to Philly, Jansen to NYCFC. But again, 10 teams will have new head coaches in 2025. The big one, of course, of interest to us, a lot of our audience, Randy Dylan in Atlanta, Javi Mascherano in Miami, Greg Berhalter, Chicago, and then some of the smaller market teams, Olaf Melberg, Seattle, or St. Louis, Nico Estevez, as we mentioned, Austin, Greg Berhalter, Chicago, Bruce Arena, the big one, San Jose, Eric Quill, we mentioned him in Dallas. So it's sort of the rundown. I see Zilf say Cardinal going to Union. That's a downgrade. I think the big thing about Philly and a lot of the conversation
you can say about biggest downgrade since Joseph Takuba.
Since Joseph Takuba. I think the big conversation piece, and I definitely agree with around Philadelphia, was Jay Sugarman, the owner, and the front office just looking for a yes man for the front office, because we all know it sounds like Curtin put his foot down and said, hey, we need to spend more money. Didn't get his wish and he walked. He got fired, or they parted ways from him. he's still available. Where is he going to go? Toronto, Vancouver are his only other options unless he wants to take the year off, and he can because I believe his contract is still going with Philadelphia, so he can kind of sit back on the beach, proverbial beach, do nothing for a year, maybe get to punditry and come back maybe 2026.
He'll go down to Clearwater.
Yeah, exactly.
Clearwater. That's where Philly always had their preseason.
Yeah. No, but he can afford to do that. He has a contract still. He still owes money from his contract. But I guess I'll ask you this. Out of the names I just mentioned, then I forgot to mention BJ Callahan from Nashville, but he took over middle of last season for Gary Smith. So out of the names I mentioned, I'll start with you. Who is the most pressure in year one?
The most pressure in year one, I would probably put it on Javier Mascherano. I think that's the easy one. And it's one I don't agree with. I think it was stupid. I think it's just bringing in one of Messi's buddies again.
Yeah.
But like that is a golden, not silver, that is a golden platter handed to you. If you can't win a trophy or two or three with that roster and that ownership group doing what they're doing, you need to just stop coaching, period. Like go. Like I just look, man, I don't have anything against Javier Mascherano. I didn't really, he was whatever to me as a player. I mean, he was cool.
You hate him.
I don't think he needs to be a coach. He was terrible for down in Argentina. And I mean, like as a player, cool, whatever. But as a coach, like he's done nothing to deserve that job.
He knows Messi.
I know that's the thing. He has done nothing to deserve to coach Lionel Messi, Sergio Busquets, Jordi Alba, Luis Suarez. Like doesn't deserve it. Like hasn't put the time in. I feel like to coach that kind of roster, you should have put in the time. That is another yes man type coaching situation, in my opinion, because it's that coach is, or that team is run by Lionel Messi. They're going to do what Lionel Messi wants, period.
Absolutely.
But who's the guy that's going to fall if Atlanta goes back and beats them in the playoffs again? It's going to be Mascherano. So pressure's on him. My runner-up would be, just because of the time off and his pedigree as a coach in MLS, he does have excuses, but I would say Bruce Arena.
I'll throw another one out there. I say Berhalter.
Yeah,
Berhalter for him, this is a redemption project, right? He's coming back to MLS after being the men's national team for a while, and things kind of tailed off. He never really got the men's national team to get into his full potential. That's really been the story of his career, right? With Columbus, got him to playoffs, sure. Never was really get him over the hump. U.S. men's national team got out of the World Cup. They got exposed in the group stage, or they got out of the group stage, but got exposed in the knockout round. It just came to a head last year. They had to cut bait. So this is really a reclamation project in the city that he knows well. He's lived in the city for years, having worked for U.S. Soccer, and this is his legacy. Like, he did decent with the crew. Didn't do as well with U.S. men's national team toward the end of his tenure. Now he's back in MLS, back in familiar territory. He doesn't have to worry about the politics of selecting players for an international or national player pool. He can shape the roster the way he wants it. He can bring in the players he wants. He selects as that technical director and head coach, and he understands, hey, I need to bring in players to elevate this club, because this is a club that has been terrible over the past few years. They've had like 1 or 2 playoff appearances in the last decade or something like that. But remember, Tyler, this Chicago Fire was the class of the league years ago when it first came in. Brought Bob Bradley the job he did. Now they're a laughingstock in MLS. So I think pressure is certainly on Greg Berhalter to get the most out of this team. And then I'll throw this out there: Ronny Deila, of course, in Atlanta. I'm not just saying that because majority of our audience is Atlanta United, but knowing the expectations that are among the Atlanta United fan base, knowing the lack of success Atlanta has had over the past few years, the playoff run really papered over the cracks of what was a really rough regular season. So he's going to need to come in and make things happen. Whoever players come in for Atlanta, he's going to need to come in and elevate this club top 4, top of the East, MLS Cup contender. This is not an easy place to coach. This is not a place where anybody can coach. So those are my 2. Certainly, there are credits to your 2. I think overall, Mascherano, of course, but those are 2 other names that you can take a look at and say pressure is really high to perform right away. And going to what Omer's saying in the comments, Bruce Arena just has to make it to the playoffs. The bar is low in San Jose.
And that's where the excuses, I think, that I was talking about. Like, what are you expecting out of San Jose?
Right.
Really. But like, I think him as a professional, as like the godfather of MLS coaches, I just feel like either A, he doesn't care anymore, and so he's like, whatever, I'm getting paid, or B, like, I have a legacy and I need to, like, if I can take San Jose and turn it into something, then
if I can make San Jose a winner,
my legacy. I didn't say Atlanta. I think just because in my mind I was thinking of the other ones besides Atlanta.
Yeah,
but Atlanta, absolutely. Dyla, he's got a weight on his shoulder for sure. I got another question on top of that, but I'll throw this one out there really quick from Gray, because this is a good one. We've kind of hit on this a few times over the past year. But Orlando, does Oscar Pareja feel any pressure to win it all in 2025, considering how close he's gotten, plus the Open Cup?
Yeah, you got to ask what the ceiling is for Orlando City. They've come close. This is as close as they've come. But again, they've won that one trophy, Open Cup. And I was just going to say, hey, what have you done for me lately? Had a really good playoff run this past season, ran out of steam against Red Bulls. So I think the pressure's off of them somewhat in 2025. But I think this pressure is going to be on in 2026. I think they're going to be a good team toward the top of the East. But they're going to have to really come to a point where, hey, we have to win trophies. We haven't won but one trophy. We got to win MLS Cup. We got to challenge for Supporters Shield. So I think he's going to be under immense pressure. I don't think he'll get fired if they don't achieve one of those things. I think if they make a deep playoff run, they'll come back. I think if they finish toward the bottom of the conference or they miss playoffs, I think he's gone. What are you feeling?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I do think a lot of it's going to depend on what Orlando's front office does. I mean, you're getting rid of your all-time leading goal scorer.
Torres is gone.
Yeah, so it's like, who are you now going to bring in? And that kind of, to me, it feels a little bit like the Philly situation, except Orlando will at least go out and do some stuff in the transfer market and whatever else. Philly doesn't. And that's going back to your point earlier, like with Carnell being a yes man, maybe that's true. Maybe, they just don't want to put the kind of money into it that you think. Maybe they want to rely more on their academy, which is admittedly probably the best in MLS. I get it. But at some point, you're going to have to start slinging some money around. So with Orlando, they'll do that. But right now, who's the goal scorer, right? Who's going to be the one that's going to consistently help them and put the game on their back, because they barely had it in 2024. Now you don't have it until you sign somebody. So, and then going back to Pareja as the coach, I mean, yeah, those decisions might not be on him, but it's all going to fall on him if they end up playing worse than they did in 2024. So my question back to you with the coaches is, out of all those, and we can include Dyla, we can include Mascherano, but taking into consideration the club that they are now coaching, their pedigree, and the ownership that's either A, they're going to spend money, or B, they're not going to spend money, who has the biggest opportunity and the biggest upside in the sense of who could cement their legacy or start their legacy? Who could really, really show out in 2025 as it stands now?
Talking about new head coaches or just any head coach?
Yeah, new head coaches.
I mean, I gotta go with Dyla, to be honest with you. But outside of that, I have to go with. I mean, let's see. Maybe low key BJ Callahan. Maybe Nashville. It depends on how much they spend, right? How do they spend? Who do they bring in the transfer window to improve this roster? You know, Gary Smith was a good coach. He only took them as far as he could take them based on the roster that they had. I mean, they still have Hanny Mukhtar. They still have Sam Sturridge, I should say. So they have some pieces, but what are some other pieces they can bring in for Zimmerman in the defense? Who else do you bring in to improve this team? I think if you're Callahan, if you're the front office, you really have a blank canvas to make this team better. So I think that's one individual. First time head coach at MLS, of course, was interim with the U.S. Men's National Team. So a lot of people will turn their nose out of him and say, well, he's part of the U.S. soccer system. But he can really, again, define his legacy if he is able to make things happen for Nashville, depending on who they bring in. I think Dyla, no, not just say that again, since we have a mostly Atlanta fan base, but he's won in New York City.
Yep.
MLS Cup, to his credit. What can he do in Atlanta? Can he make it to MLS Cups? Can he take a team, like we said, that's underperformed over the past few years, that has sky-high expectations to become one of the best teams in the continent and get back to whether we're in 2017 to a lesser extent 2018, 2019, and get them back to that level? So absolutely, those are two coaches that I'm looking at. And then Berhalter, again, like I said, he has the keys to the car. Technical director, head coach, that dual title. So again, this is a little bit of a reclamation project for him, concerning how things went with the U.S. men's national team. Anyone else see you jump in?
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely, Dyla is for sure one, and that's not just from an Atlanta perspective, but there's not that many coaches in MLS that have won MLS Cup twice, much less with two different teams. But as far as like ones that have won it more than once, you have Bruce Arena, obviously, Siggy Schmidt, Frank Yalla, Dominic Kinnear, Ryan Schmetzer, Caleb Porter, and Greg Vanny. How many of those are with different teams? I'm not sure right now off the top of my head, or off the top of Google's head. But yeah. But, Dyla has a golden opportunity in front of him. The one that jumped out to me with that question initially was Callahan, because I think you have an ownership group that they care. You have a good atmosphere, good crowd. You have a moment to put your stamp on the team in any way that you want. Like, we know that they were a defensive oriented team, but that kind of fell off and they were stuck in limbo. They didn't really know what they were. So he's had an off season now to kind of put his stamp on it. He has the option and the opportunity to come out in 2025 and make Nashville a legitimate contender. And if he can, those fans will love him for it forever.
Even though he's part of the... Oh, go ahead.
Huh? No, go ahead.
I said, even though he's part of the U.S. soccer ecosystem.
Yeah, because I think when he was part of that ecosystem during that interim time, people loved him because he let the men's national team go out there and play, and he got results. And like, was it, Pep Guardiola type coaching? No, he just let them play to their strengths. And sometimes that's all you got to do in soccer. But I mean, I felt like in a lot of ways, he was like the anti-Greg Berhalter. And I think that's maybe why he endeared himself to men's national team fans. So if he can do that, he could draw in some of those men's national team fans, right? So we'll see. My other one that kind of stood out to me was Estevez with Austin, because I feel like it's just Austin's atmosphere, their stadium. They have now attendance. Don't know. I know it's kind of been up and down, but their atmosphere, from all accounts that I've heard and seen, is off the chain. So they get that team rolling like they were in, 2022, I think, when they had a really, really good season.
Yeah.
That just seemed like a fun place to be, and they haven't had success in the way that they want. So I just feel like that's another golden opportunity for him. So
One other, and this has been a hire that's been made a while back. Eric Quell in Dallas. I feel like that's a hire more to foster the younger players along because he's coached with North Texas, their affiliate, um, for years. He moved to the career as an assistant, was in New Mexico United USL Championship, had success there, pretty much earned his way into MLS. You don't see, I'm not seeing a lot because you saw Troy Lesesne jump from the championship to MLS, and he's not been successful with DC United. Although not all of it is his fault, right? But
yeah,
Troy Lesesne was terrific with New Mexico United. Ironically, the same club Eric Quill was in. But he comes over from New Mexico United USL Championship. What does he do? How does he adjust to MLS? I mean, he has an MLS experience formerly with the Crew. But is this a right hire for them? Is this a hire that can take them over the top? And I think the answer is no. I think it's just kind of a low-key hire. It's a safe hire, I think. You don't have, we had really Jim Curtin that was out there. Jim Curtin has had experience with younger players. With the Philadelphia Union Academy, you had him available. You had Bradley Carnell available if you wanted him. So it's kind of a safe hire. It's a little bit of a hire that I don't really understand. Again, it's been a few months, but I don't know. I could be wrong.
Well, I mean, and that's the thing. You never know, right? You never know what coach could come in and is just an absolute genius with what they have in front of them. But that's soccer, right? Like you never know who the next Pep Guardiola is going to be. Who the next Cruyff is going to be. But everybody's got to start somewhere. That being said, the Philly hire, the Dallas hire, some of these are the types of hires, and it's nothing against them as coaches, but these are the types of hires that I didn't want Atlanta to have because I feel like they have to shoot higher than that.
Yeah.
And I'm glad. I'm grateful that Dyla is who Atlanta ended up with because I think, in my opinion, he was the best, not only big name, high profile type, because that doesn't really matter, though it feels like it does sometimes. He's the most experienced, and to a degree, most successful that was out there that was realistically available. So I'm glad Atlanta didn't go that route. We'll see how some of these other teams handle it.
Wouldn't you argue too that NYCFC should have shot a little bit higher themselves?
Do. And Zilf saying Jansen to my question. His answer was Jansen, but go ahead.
I was gonna say it seems like another safe hire. Granted, he's had success in Europe. Started out as a coach with young PSV's youth setup. Moved on to AZ, and then moved on to the Hungarian league for a year before, or part of a year before, half a year before going to NYCFC. So kind of an interesting hire for them. He wasn't with Ferreira long enough, really, to make a significant impact. 117, lost 6 through 7. So not the best record in the world. You go back to when he was with AZ and in the Netherlands, 94 wins, 42 losses, 26 draws. So a little over 58%, nearly 60% of those wins, 60% wins. So you look at where they were in the standings during his tenure, 2020, 2021, maybe you don't count that as much because that was COVID. But you look at where they were. He took over Arne Slot sort of mid-season, finished third in the league that year, fifth next season, fourth the season after that, and then fourth the season after. Well, they were in fourth when he left. So has had some success with AZ in the Netherlands. So again, it's an interesting hire. It's an interesting hire. I'm not saying it's a bad hire or a good hire, but it's an interesting hire, and it seems like maybe a club like NYCFC will maybe shoot a little higher, unless they're looking to maybe get him in the Man City fold and eventually maybe send him to Man City to whoever takes over for Pep if and when he decides to leave Man City. So
You
that's just theoretically speaking.
that's been kind of my curiosity about City Football Group, because to me, when you have conglomerates essentially that own clubs compared to individuals or a couple of people, I always look at like how they spend money, and then if they own other clubs, like what do those clubs look like? And of course, like City Football Group, the big one's going to be Man City. That's always going to be the big one.
Yeah.
But in MLS, you have New York City. They've started building their new stadium, which seems like it's going to be pretty brilliant when it gets done. But out of all the clubs, they own like 13 football clubs, I think.
Yes.
Why do you not go and try to convince one of Pep's assistants or one of the assistants from, one of the other very successful clubs to maybe take that next leap to a New York City FC as the head coach?
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not saying you have to, but you have essentially a pipeline there. And then also I wonder too, and this kind of went under the radar, but City Football Group, they appointed a new like technical director that's like over everything.
Right.
Like the Godfather technical director in October. And so like I wonder, I don't know, I know nothing about him. All I know is he's an Italian guy. But like what is his philosophy going to look like, right? Because at the end of the day, he's going to be one doing making a lot of these decisions. So I just feel like, I feel like they could have shot a lot higher in the same sense that Atlanta was. I wanted them to shoot high. I really felt like City was going to shoot for somebody really big, and I don't want to call anybody a letdown, but like on paper, there are some letdowns here, and to me, that's kind of one of them.
Agreed. And Bruno's saying sort of what we were saying. Maybe it's an interview for him to see if they transfer to the bigger club. I mean, he's not going to go to Man City or anything like that for anything more than an assistant job. But I don't know. I mean, we'll have to see, what comes of it and how he does with NYCFC.
That's a good point from Mark.
Mark saying,
kills me. The Citigroup dumped money into their teams except for New York City, the one team that they own that could be a perennial contender with a little investment. That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Playing on a baseball field, and all you have to do is just throw in a little bit of money, and you could, now roster rules aside, which are Miami. But I agree. I feel like they feel a little bit like the redheaded stepchild sometimes, which is a shame. It's New York City, man.
That new stadium is really nice looking, though.
Yeah, and I think that'll be maybe what helps catch the attention of maybe some people who are not super keen on going to Yankee Stadium to watch a soccer game, or don't know, that it's that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But they should lean in absolutely to the Man City, New York City connection. Like, it's New York City. It needs to be a bigger deal.
Greatest city of the world.
Get out.
Second greatest city in the world. Do we want to talk about Messi before we go?
Yeah,
Messi didn't show up to the Presidential Freedom for whatever reason.
Ridiculous. So, for those that don't know, Lionel Messi has been I don't know what the correct terminology here would be, but he was awarded, in theory, the Presidential Medal of Freedom. He was not physically awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom because it just cracks me up. He had prior commitments and could not go to the White House to accept the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which
what are you doing?
I don't know. Like, first of all, how much time did you have before this? Like, how long did you know you were getting this medal?
Well, I read in December they told his people, like, take your plane. I mean, I'm sure you have a private jet or something. Fly to DC, accept the medal, take a few pictures, go back home, probably the same day or the next day, go back on the beach to your beach house in Buenos Aires or whatever it is, and be done with it. Big time the president of the United States.
It cracks me up though. Like I just think it's so funny that because for all the stuff that happened between Atlanta and Miami this year, I like Lionel Messi. I do. I
Right.
really like him as a player and I like him as a person because I feel like I've never met him besides running by him in the stadiums and stuff.
Oh,
Never
that was
met
the
the guy.
media about him because they were.
Yeah. But I mean, just his the way he presents himself, outwardly, he seems very humble. He seems very family oriented, and I think that's great. He's like the polar opposite of like Cristiano Ronaldo. But I can absolutely respect a dude, and it's also very easy when you make millions and millions of dollars. But I can respect a guy that's like, yeah, dude, I don't really have time nor the care to go to your country's main seat of government and accept an award. We'll get back to it later. Can you just drop it in the mail? Like,
Come on.
whatever, dude. I just think it's hilarious though that it was like such a like he's got the Ballon d'Ors, he's got all these trophies, he's got all the silverware, and they were going to present him with a medal for a variety
not winning
of things.
MLS Cup.
Yeah,
being Lionel Messi.
And he's just like, no, I'm good. I'll catch it later. Just something about that whole story.
How does that work? Do they just send in the mail to him down in Argentina, or have someone deliver to his representative's house down there, and they drive it over to his place?
Yeah, or leave it at Miami's training ground.
Yeah,
it's so weird, man. Like, it's just such a weird story because again, I've seen people kind of arguing like, does he deserve it? I mean, it can be awarded for a whole host of things, philanthropy being one of them. I mean, he does, he's not stingy with his money.
Yeah.
Which is great. That being said, like, I don't know, can you point to something specific in the United States? Because that's what it's about. That he has done to greatly impact a particular group of people or whatever.
Hey, that leaked cup in 2023 was pretty significant.
that was big time. Yeah.
And that's Supporter Shield.
That's the thing. Like, he came here, he played soccer, got beat by Atlanta United. I just think it's just such a weird thing to give an award for. And I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it. It's just like, it just kind of felt like it was out of nowhere. It felt like it was like, oh, cool, he's playing in the U.S. now. Let's give him this award because why not? He's got every other piece of silverware ever made anyway. So let's give him another one. It's odd, man. It's just such a weird thing.
Yeah. Well,
weird way to start 2025.
Congrats to Lionel Messi.
Yeah.
Should have been Brecky's in there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it was in our Discord. Somebody, I can't remember who, or maybe it was on Twitter, but somebody was like, if he goes, this is before he said he wasn't accepting it or wasn't going to be there to accept it. Biden's getting ready to put it over his neck, and then Brad comes out of nowhere and just like snatches it out of the president's hand. Because that's exactly what he did in the playoffs. There's so many. If he had been there and they had the video of it getting put on his neck, the memes that would have been made would have been legendary. Legendary.
Well, I'm sure he'll get it somehow. I don't know how. Like, they'll send it to his agent's place in Argentina and drive it over there and whatever.
Is he in Argentina right now? Or is he? I wonder if he's in Argentina or is he in Spain?
Wherever he is. He's warmer weather.
Yeah.
He's getting away from all this cold weather here in the U.S.
Yeah. Yep. And
I'm fully Instagram to see where he is. See if he has a story.
Well, in the meantime, if you are listening, watching, and you are somewhere in the middle of this winter storm, be safe, stay warm. Absolutely. Have you snuck up on him yet? Do you know where he's at?
I didn't see anything. He hasn't posted, or his people haven't posted since the 2nd. So
okay,
no hints.
Oh well, maybe he's on the move. Scarfsandspikes.com. Guys, go check it out. We will be back on Wednesday. at 7 doing the normal Atlanta show. And for everybody, we see all the comments.
Hold your questions.
Yeah, we'll talk about the front office. We'll talk about rumors. We'll talk about Kyogo Furuhashi. We'll talk about whoever else may pop up or may not pop up, or the news or lack thereof. We'll talk about all the Atlanta United stuff. We'll get 2025 kicked off right. Go join the Discord and Patreon to get in the Discord. Patreon.com/scarves and spikes. And yeah, go get you a hoodie on the store. Stay warm. They're quite nice this time of year.
It is cold.
It is quite cold.
At least.
Feels like 19 outside right now. Weather.com.
I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe
quite
it.
chilly.
Thanks,
Appreciate
everyone.
you guys, hanging out with us. It was fun. It was a good time.
Always a blast.
Oh, look at this. It's fancy.
Yes, it is.
Fancy. Now I feel like we have to have like a end credit scene occasionally. It looks like a Marvel movie.
It's supposed to say something about supporting us on Patreon. Patreon.com/scarves and spikes. For some reason, it didn't show up here, so
that's okay. We got all the people.
We'll have it for Wednesday. But yeah, those are our
them.
patrons. Thanks for supporting us.
Always.
All of you.
And happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Are we done?
Oh, look, I can start up.
All right. See you Wednesday.